Pokemon, the biggest title to ever exist, which has existed for longer than I have, to be honest. It holds a pretty special place in the hearts of many, and a hole in the wallets of those same people. Recently, their two newest, and seemingly most ambitious in quotes, games have come out. Pokemon Sword and Shield. The first mainline Pokemon games finally coming to a home console with the Switch seemingly should point to this being the most polished Pokemon game ever. This is until more and more of the game was shown to the public, with the public becoming more and more skeptical and worried over the condition and quality of the Galar region. Pokemon designs akin to Digimon, no national dex, lost the beloved features removed completely out of the game, reused animations, and worst of all, low quality trees. Ooh, scary. As things kept moving forward, several people in the community had lost hope for the game, criticizing Game Freak for their choices, while others defended the game with either fair points or complete rudeness, depending on who you're talking to. Both sides raised compelling points, usually, except if you were being rude, that made it easy to forget the fact that all was happening and the game wasn't even quite out yet. So I made it my personal quest to go into this game almost 100% spoiler free and make my own opinion of the game and find out if the game was deserving of the backlash it was given or if it was justified in the severity of it. So we're going to start in a bit of a weird area and talk first about the game's writing and story. Because, well, I see this get thrown aside a lot during arguments, as it's not the main selling point of the game. It's not quite as complex as Pokemon Black and White, heck it's not even as complex as Red and Blue in some cases. But it doesn't have to be, and the game recognizes that. Your goal is pretty simple, as always, you're trying to become the champion of the Galar region.
Oh shit, here we go again.
And defeat all your opponents and whatever baddies appear in the game. But I actually really like the approach they took with the story, as there is a much bigger emphasis on the gym challenges, especially with the little details, like more and more people cheering you on as you move forward. I especially like this compared to Sun and Moon, where the trials just felt kind of like a sitting duck when you're moving towards the Elite Four. But my absolute favorite part of this game and writing are the rivals, especially this goober over here. Now say what you want about him, go ahead and say how easy it is to beat him or how annoying his friendliness is, but I really like him. He actually displays a bit of emotion for his losses and tries to improve, all while trying to keep his head up high. He struggles, and I really like that. And now that I've said something positive, let me say something negative. What is this? I'm so confused. Who at Nintendo looked at these designs and said, ah yes, this is it, the evil team of the region. But hey, I can't really complain. At least they have multiple colors, unlike one certain same shaded flamboyant team I know. Speaking of older generations, let's quickly talk about the national dex. I thought this would be my biggest gripe with the game, but honestly, I think it's fine. It's okay. It's annoying and depressing to think that many Pokemon that people love are gone and unavailable in the newest regions, and the only way to use them is by getting an older game. Rest in peace Ferret, your walk was a stride. And I really hate the reasons that they gave as well, such as reworking models, animating, taking too much time, etc, because it all just kind of felt like it was an attempt to save face with the community, and it just felt really fake. There are already plenty of videos going in depth to this issue, so I highly recommend checking those out, but since it was covered so much, I want to move ahead to some other topics. This brings me to my biggest complaint of all, the one complaint that almost everyone had issues with, the reused animations. This is definitely the biggest stinker of the entire game, to be honest. With the number of Pokemon reduced a significant amount, more than half by the way, being on a more powerful console, you would think that they would have plenty of time to make the models or at least add some new animations to already existing models in Pokemon. But no, we get copy and pasted from the 3DS games, which is a massive bummer to witness since it gives the game many bad impressions such as being lazy and rushed, which I can't really argue against cause, come on, Game Freak could do so much better than this. To port Sword and Shield on the Spectrum, when X and Y came out, it would have the most Pokemon in a 3D environment at once, with all the old Pokemons and new ones, and for being on the 3DS, it worked efficiently and it was very interesting. It was no Pokemon Coliseum or Stadium with its complexity, but for being on the portable toaster, not bad at all. Then came Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which makes sense as to why they would reuse the old animations. It must have taken a lot of work to convert every old Pokemon to the 3DS, and the remakes didn't introduce any new Pokemon apart from the new Megas. Next was Sun and Moon, where the overworld got a huge remake and looked much better than it did in X and Y, and in the Gen 3 remakes. But the Pokemon animations stayed exactly the same, which leads me to ask for why. It's been a good while since the models were made by Game Freak, and they're starting to get old. Besides, the new animations are just really lackluster, as most of them are just repeating with a new move animation instead of the individual one. People are going to start noticing that you keep reusing the same models, right? Then Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon came out, and yeah, you can start to see a pattern forming. Sure, it's justified that it came out in a year and used the exact same graphics as Sun and Moon, but still, this is another year of the same animations that we've seen for the last 4 or so. And the same move animations with every Pokemon performing all the same actions, with a small animation the Pokemon do, which often leads to them staying still and making the movement feel awkward, or making them perform an action that doesn't even fit the move's description. And this issue would continue to plague Sword and Shield, even with the much newer Pokemon, which is a huge shame since many of the new Pokemon have nice animations and good designs, but they are extremely limited and the movements get reused. It doesn't just affect the Pokemon in battle either. The wild area is brimming with opportunity to do things, yet the animations can feel bland and boring sometimes, since it's just so bare bones. The moves feel lifeless, especially when comparing the modern animations to the older ones of the older games. Even the sprite work looks more lively. It especially hurts since the Pokemon can feel alive. People have gone out of their way to make animations for them just to prove that there is laziness in Game Freak's work with the animations. What's worse is that they can feel alive within the game's version of Pokemon to me, Pokemon Camp. Pokemon Camp is 100% one of my favorite parts about the game. It's not only another way to grind for experience, but it provides other objects of content, like adding more use to berries and Pokemon decks to complete with the curry, which of itself has a minigame and a way to recover on the go, which yes makes the game easier, but it's not really mandatory, so you don't have to do it. But my favorite part about Pokemon Camp is interacting with the Pokemon themselves. You get to see them move, they feel alive with their personality shining through, even if some are animations just getting used. They're like bling blang pa pow pow, oh yeah. They have conversations with each other and grow to trust you, which gives you the feeling of assembling a proper team and making them grow to trust themselves and you as their trainer. It affects the gameplay with the greater trust you have with your Pokemon, the higher the odds of them landing a critical hit, dodging an attack, or surviving on 1 HP. Which, yes, again, does make the game easier, but again, completely optional mode which you can just ignore. And also, it's Pokemon. It's not supposed to be a very hard game. But I understand that not having the ability to choose difficulty for interactions can be a pain, especially when the EXP share is permanently turned off. Meaning that you can't even choose to make the game harder. It's much like the battle animations, it's limited. You can have the choice of playing with a feather or throwing a few kinds of balls, both of which can get repetitive really quick, especially when you want to see your Pokemon constantly. And the cooking minigame can also get annoying because there's no changing factors. It's just one unchanging minigame with nothing new being presented, but the end product is just the new kind of curry. At least in Pokemon and Me, you could switch around what minigames you could do, and in Sun and Moon version, you have different tools for different problems. Also, you can't pet Pokemon anymore. I want to pet them. I need to pet them. Game Freak, why have you forsaken me? I want to pet the Fallings. Look at them, they're marketable as now that I've regained my composure a little, let's just move on to the last issue, being the aforementioned difficulty. What's to say about it? If you play the game straightforward, collecting 6 Pokemon to make up your party, the game is pretty damn easy, except for an extremely out of place level spike towards the end, which feels 100% like it was placed to give the illusion of growth in the challenge. With the additional things to grind like EXP candies from raid battles, stronger mons that give EXP but die in one hit, and the Pokemon Camp, grinding isn't the biggest issue, making the game rather simple. It's even possible to beat the game in one sitting if you have the time and know what you're doing. It's especially annoying to play with permanent EXP share on, since you can't even choose to make the game difficult anymore, which sucks for anyone looking for a slightly more challenging experience. By the time you get to the next town, all your Pokemon are stronger than they should be, and you fought way less enemies than in other games. This especially holds true if you have 6 Pokemon, as they are constantly getting experience, making the game just a tad bit too much easier. However, I don't think that this is 100% a valid reason of criticism, since the game clearly doesn't just want you to catch 6 mons and roll with it. Quite literally the opposite of what the game intends. It heavily encourages catching a large quantity of Pokemon and switching your team at a constant. Despite having a lot less Pokemon as other games, it provides the most freedom of choice in constructing and developing your team thanks to a little thing called the Wild Area. At first, I thought the Wild Area was going to be a huge letdown to the game, being much smaller than I believed and having a lot of limited things, yet it quickly became my favorite addition to the game. Never before could I have so much freedom in the Pokemon I choose to be with me. I got to try new Pokemon that were just introduced, some old favorites that sneaked their way in past border control, and completely new Pokemon from older generations that I didn't even think of using before, due to either a lack of interest in the Pokemon in the past, or them just appearing so late in other games that it's boring and non-optimal to use them. It got to the point where I originally wanted to catch all the Pokemon I saw, but I failed just because there was so much to do. There was plenty to do and explore within the region, and more just kept unlocking as you move forward in the game. Plus, the Pokemon change when they appear for the weather present in areas. Sometimes they're here, sometimes they're there, sometimes they aren't, and sometimes new Pokemon appear, and sometimes it's Sudowoodo. You are definitely pushed to slow down and enjoy the process of finding Pokemon, battling stronger Pokemon, and making a great team with variety. And that's exactly what I did. And that's why it took me 52 hours to beat. Oh my god, that's almost close to my Persona 3 time. To give some reference to that, it would have been possible to beat a Pokemon game twice if you were to run through it with the normal playstyle. Yet because of the freedom of choice, I was able to build and grind more Pokemon and have a much more drawn out experience. If I had to compare this game to another, I would say that it's kind of like Luigi's Mansion, oddly enough. They're both very short games that have lots to do, and you feel like you could replay it a lot. At least that's what I got from my experience. With all that being said, I would like to tip my hat to Game Freak for all the amazing time I had with the Galar region, before giving them a dirty look for all the things that they performed wrong. All in all, the game had issues, and that's fine, because it was still lots of fun. I could definitely feel the Pokemon love and energy still present within the game and lots of its features, but it was weighed down by things like other projects and the time limit of 1 year which Pokemon has now been forced to meet, as well as having to turn in a profit, which is simply the goal of any company really, and definitely felt a bit more interweaved into the game's conception. I hope that next time they take a bit more time to organize the game, just a tad more, and rework the models before doing the next big Pokemon game, while they still keep their originality and love for the franchise. As for everyone who didn't buy the game because they felt like it was a cheap cash grab, or not very new, you have the right to believe that, and there was definitely a few things that felt really weak and unpolished, and that's unarguable. For those who tried to convince others that the game is new and fun, I can't really disagree with you either, as I have more positive opinions about the game than negative really. And as for those who blindly hate or protect the game, try to remember, nothing is ever fully black and white, and to keep an open mind.